Hello, Internet world, and welcome to yet another episode of Whatever Flips Your Waffle on 365sportscast.com. I'm your host, Mark Domeyer, coming to you once again from the bunker deep in the frozen heart of southern Minnesota, though a little bit of a thaw might be on its way, and there might be a thaw in the Hot Stove League for Major League Baseball to help keep us warm. I'm glad you've decided to tune in again and listen to my ramblings about Minnesota sports. Welcome to those of you who have tuned in previous weeks and to those of you checking things out for the first time. Let's talk about the Hot Stove League and the lack thereof to start off this week's program. The ongoing lockout in Major League Baseball. I get more frustrated day by day when I read things about this. I'm not sure that the Major League Baseball owners have thought this one through. They are on the verge of losing millions of dollars, and they're arguing about the millions of dollars that the players want as part of some of the financial incentives in the package and arbitration and all those things that kind of go into the mix. And this seems like cats spitting at each other or something. Can baseball afford to have a lockout and to prolong the beginning of the season, push that back? The fact that spring training games and activities are already being postponed and missed is a bad sign for the owners, and they seem to be oblivious of this whole thing. And I would start with this. A lot of people plan a spring break. They want to go to spring training. They put money down on trips and packages and hotels and all that kind of stuff way ahead of time. Teams are selling tickets to their minor league games well in advance. So what have you done to these people? Either the people who, they do this every single year. It's kind of a ritual, a wonderful thing that they really enjoy. Or maybe this is the one time they would have an opportunity to go down there. Maybe people are emerging from the pandemic, really need something positive in their lives, and they want to go down there. I've never been to spring training. I hope to go in a couple of years. It's one of those bucket list things that I really want to do. But when you have situations like this, you're perturbing people all over the country. People who want to journey to Florida and watch the Twins in spring training. The people who live down there and who count on that for part of their living. They look forward to the spring training. They're going to make money on, again, housing, food establishments, stuff like that. I know plenty of people travel to Fort Myers just for the weather and the beaches around there and all kinds of other wonderful things that they have. But this is devastating, I'm sure, to the economy of not just Fort Myers, but the other locations where there's spring training, including Arizona as well. So what are they thinking? Are both sides, and I'm not going to put the players completely without fault here, but it seems like the idea of bargaining in good faith is lacking from the owners here. They come to the table and rather than making strides toward each other, which is what both sides should do, it almost seems insulting some of the small little offers that they make. We'll give you just a little bit extra. When you're making upwards of $600,000 a year for a minimum salary and you want to raise something by $10,000, $25,000, that's not insignificant to the rest of us in the world, of course. But to those people, that doesn't mean a whole lot. That's not a significant change in what they want to do. And again, it's not that I feel really horribly bad for these ball players that are making much more money than most of us would ever dream of making in 1 year. But I also don't have those talents that draw people to pay hundreds of dollars to watch me do what I like to do. Nobody's paying me big bucks to sit here on the radio and talk about sports. Nobody pays me a huge amount of money to go teach or officiate or announce sports games, because I'm not that important in the grand scheme of things that what I do is worth paying huge amounts of money to see on a daily basis. I think what I do is important in its own way, but this is a whole different realm. And I think when we wrap our minds around that we have created this ourselves by wanting to go and watch these type of entertainment venues, and then we can feel a little bit bad that they're not necessarily getting a raise that's equivalent to the raises that you and I might possibly get in the course of our job. And again, it's not all about the money. There are other things like when the free agency period might begin, how the draft might be set up and international signings and all kinds of things are all part of that. But it seems like, the owners are cutting off their nose to spite their face here. How many people is this going to just drive away from baseball? It's already been teetering a little bit. Baseball saved a little bit of face during the first year of the pandemic. They were able to finally get something figured out and provide entertainment on TV, live sports that people, stuck at home really, really needed to watch. And that really had some good vibes. But even if you remember back then, it was not so easy to get a plan in place. Both the players and the owners were, again, kind of spitting at each other with little things. Just get it figured out. At the rate they're going right now, it seems little chance that the Major League Baseball season will start on time. They would have to open training camps within the next week, and that seems very unlikely. And one wonders just what this will do to the long-term effects on Major League Baseball. How will you bring people back? If you remember, the last time things really shut down for a long time back in the mid-'90s, it took really the Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa home run race, which now we can look back on and say it was fueled by steroids and PEDs and stuff like that. That's what it took to bring people back. Everybody was excited about baseball. What are you going to do when you drive all these people away? How are you going to bring people back into the stands and back into watching on TV? And that the TV thing with Bally Sports North is a whole nother topic that we might talk about if we ever get to watch baseball again. How are you going to do that? I just think that owners have all this money they could spend, and they're sitting in the lap of luxury anyway. Give a little bit to them. And I speak here as somebody who negotiates on behalf of a union. There's bargaining in good faith. There's being realistic about things. And there's also understanding that you have to give a little to get a little. And it doesn't seem like that's happening right now in Major League Baseball. Well, let's turn now to some things closer to home. I'd like you to sit back, relax, prepare yourself for another helping of waffles, syrup optional. After this brief commercial break, I'll be back with my interview for the week. It'll be my pleasure to present to you Carlie Wagner, former women's basketball star in both high school here in the Richland area and for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Stick around. Do you look out the window when it's snowing and sigh deeply about having to go move the white stuff? Does the nice weather roll around and you'd rather head out to the lake on the weekend instead of having to take care of your lawn? If either or both of those are the case and you live in the New Richland, Minnesota area, give Berg Lawn Care a call. Grant Berg provides the best lawn care and snow removal around. Give them a call at 507-456-0431. Berg Lawn Care, taking care of what you want to avoid. 507-456-0431. We're joined today by Carlie Wagner, the legendary Carlie Wagner, 2014 graduate of Richland, Heartland, Allendale, Geneva, and a 2018 graduate from the University of Minnesota. Carlie, when I throw the adjective legendary in there, does that strike a chord? Do you ever stop and think about, back in my hometown, people still remember me and still talk about me?
No, not really, honestly. That's what I love about New Richland, though, is that I never felt that way. It was just, my hometown people, all my friends and family and people, that supported me through every step of the way. So that's what I think about. I guess when you come from a small town, it's different.
Right. I pulled up stats, and I'm sure you like to be reminded of these, but for our listeners who maybe aren't as familiar, Carlie graduated from high school as the number 2 overall scorer in girls basketball in the state of Minnesota, 3,982 points. And then college at the University of Minnesota, she finished as the number 3 all-time overall leading scorer for the Gophers with 2,215 career points. So some lofty numbers overall. You had a cup of coffee with the Lynx as well, tried that out and stuff. But I want to start here, Carlie. You're not old, but it'll make you feel a little bit older. This year is the 10-year anniversary of your first appearance in the state tournament for girls basketball. And that's hard to believe that it's been a decade. But
absolutely.
Talk about how that felt. you and your teammates make it to state, and how did that feel, especially as you started to be noticed as an individual player? Like, Carlie Wagner is the real deal.
Oh, I still think about it sometimes when I'm watching college basketball games on TV. It was such a cool experience, and it was just so much fun to give the town so much, like, great memories, I guess. Going for the first time, we all wanted to just, I felt a little bit short of years in a row. Well, my summer, got to make an appearance. It was, like, hard work that we put into the preseason and all season finally paid off, and it was an absolute blast. We had so many great memories.
And what point is it during that point or the following year when you really started to realize that you might have what it takes to at a higher level? Did that really start to see on?
I think it was end of sophomore year. Honestly, before that, I didn't even know if I was going to be playing college basketball. I just knew that at that moment in time, I loved playing it. And I didn't have super high expectations of myself until in between freshman and sophomore year when I started getting recruited. And I was, wow, this is actually happening. This is real. And I remember John pulling me aside and being like, Carlie, like, this is just the start. Like, this could really take off. And I just grew so much of the player in between time more years around. I was, I really want to Division I basketball now because I think I finally started getting confidence in myself and believing in myself that I could.
Okay. And for those who don't know, she refers to Coach John Schultz, who coached her and her teammates from little on all the way through high school. And I sit here from a personal standpoint, Carlie, and of course I remember watching you in elementary basketball, and there were days you couldn't throw the ball in the ocean from the beach. So you talk about your growth. But I also remember one of my favorite stories to tell people is that I remember your first varsity basket and getting to announce that. And I remember turning to your favorite clock keeper, Larry Crabtree, and saying, Larry, how many times am I going to say Carlie's name before she graduates? And he said an awful lot, and that certainly was true. But so it's a little bit early. I wondered when you say kind of end of freshman year, beginning of sophomore year, and it really kind of hit you that you had that opportunity to do that. So
yeah.
How did that then change your preparation for basketball? When you say I made this goal, I want to play Division I basketball.
Yeah. The crazy thing is that I was putting in the work before I even realized that. I was playing AAU basketball in 5th grade all the way up till junior year of high school. And for me, it was just so much fun. It was just a couple of enriching girls like Paige Overgaard, Jade Schultz. We just joined with girls in the area and go up and play for fun, and we loved it. And at that point, I was like, this is fun. This is just for fun. But little did I know it was actually preparing me for things in the future that I didn't really know of. But, when I hit that mark freshman and sophomore year, things changed a little bit for me, and I started putting in extra time. I actually joined like an AAU team that was out of the cities called the Minnesota Stars, and it was a lot more national recognition and a lot more, coaches can come see and watch you play. So that's when it really elevated, I think, when I started doing that and traveling to the cities and getting to play around the country and traveling throughout the spring and summer.
Okay. So explain, for those of us who thrived on the bench and never had any dreams like that, explain the recruiting process. What was that like for you? How did that kind of evolve over those years?
It started slower, and I was like, this is fun, and it just started out as getting letters in the mail and, things like that, and then it quickly progressed to me ending lunch and going straight to John Schultz's room, and I'd get a list of people that I had to call, email back, or, they want me to come visit, and it was every day, and I'm like, Schultz, I'm overwhelmed, this is a lot, and It became a little more stressful pretty quick, and honestly, John Schultz helped make it a lot more easy on me by being there and really like communicating with the coaches when I was pretty busy, and kind of telling them who I'm more interested in, who I'm not, and things like that. So very, very thankful that I had him to help me along the way, because it's seriously out of this world how much pressure it can really put on you.
Well, and everybody would be very excited in New Richland when suddenly a college coach would appear at a ball game to watch. And, that didn't seem to change how you played that night, did it? You knew they were there.
Yeah, and for some reason, it never really affected me. I always just kept the thought in my head, like, you just go be Carlie, play how you always play. Like, don't let anybody else sitting there. It's not going to change anything. So I was just super confident, and I was confident in my teammates, and I was like, well, here we go. Let's just go do this.
Right.
So, yeah, never too big of an issue for me. I think I just tried my best to stay as level-headed as possible.
And you had kind of helped me remember, because my brain age is a little bit faster than yours, but you had kind of made up your mind by the end of your junior year, right?
Yeah.
That you were going to the U? Okay.
Yep.
And of course, then things change again. You know, you graduate from high school, and suddenly the coaching changed at the University of Minnesota. And here's the coach who had recruited you, who had brought you in, and now she's not there anymore. Any thought ever at that point about saying, well, maybe I want to go somewhere else now?
Weirdly enough, it never crossed my mind.
Okay.
I remember we just got done with the state tournament, and so, I'm up really high. I was super happy, like cloud nine, and then people are starting to message me, and they're like, what's going on? What's happening? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, there's a coaching change at the U, and I'm like, what? And then I got on the phone with the AD and was talking and stuff and just trying to figure out what happened. And crazy experience, but also I just fell in love with the University of Minnesota, and I knew that going there I was going to get my friends, my family, the Richland people, everybody being able to come up and watch, and that's the biggest thing I wanted. And I wanted to be able to go home on the weekends and hang out with my family when I had the chance, and, that was really important to me.
Right. And now, the way college sports, period, have evolved, the transfer portal is so very different today. It seems like it's a lot easier to move from one school to another. And you obviously were very dedicated, but, you hear more and more about this. The Gophers have had a couple players this year just enter the transfer portal, and they're going to go somewhere else. Is that a positive thing for college basketball? I mean, you saw a lot more than we did behind the scenes and stuff where people maybe felt kind of locked in. Is this ability to move easier a good thing for these student athletes?
I think in most cases, yeah. I mean, if you're at a college and you're not getting the opportunity you wanted, or, you're just not getting the experience that you were expecting, I think it's totally fair that you're able to go somewhere that makes you happy and find something that you want to do, and that brings that joy back to you for sure. Because I know some kids feel stuck and they never leave, and then they think they missed out on a great opportunity or the experiences that they should have gotten, and it's sad. Like, you never want to feel that way. So I think, yeah, absolutely, if they're not happy, let them go where they need to go.
Another big difference here that's just come about in the last year is the ability for these college athletes to make money off their name. They can go somewhere and they get all the sponsorships. You would have had opportunities, certainly, don't you think? I mean, to do that when you were in school, had that been around?
Yeah, I think locally I definitely would have had some opportunities. And, not long after I graduated, when all these rules changed, and it was like engraved in our head, like everything that they can do now, they told us not to do.
Right.
So it was crazy to me that I was like, wait, so every rule that we went through, and you come in as a freshman, like, you can't do this, you can't do this. All of a sudden, it's all fair game, and it's crazy. It's a great opportunity for athletes. It really is, but also, I'm like, I wonder what kept them from doing it earlier on. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, because and you've heard the argument. Well, geez, they get a free college education. What more do they need? But there's so much more. I mean, as an athlete, you're putting in a lot more time than a typical student. I mean, the normal student goes to class and does their homework and hangs out with their friends, and you almost have like a full-time job or more. I mean, in season, you are more than 40 hours a week in the gym, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. You have to be very good at multitasking and managing your time, because basketball in itself is like a whole other class, job, homework in itself. So you have class all morning, and then you got to go to a 3-hour practice, and then you got to watch film, and then you have a scouting report that you need to memorize each player on and what they do. And then you got to still finish your schoolwork, and you're in 14 credits. Right. You really got to manage your time and prioritize what's really important. And it all is really important, but it's, you're a student athlete, so I think it's really important to get that schoolwork in too, because if you don't, you can't play basketball. So I think, they coexist.
Right. So now, with this idea of college athletes being able to make money, are there some areas that becomes an unfair advantage to certain schools? I mean, can you see a time where, well, geez, if I go to this school, my opportunities are going to be so much better to make money, so that's where I'm going to go?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's other schools that are considered basketball schools that everybody knows who they are, and they're just a dominant program. And if you go there, your opportunities are going to be higher because teams that win get more TV time, they get more, they get talked about more, they get more publicity, and then that's going to people out. You have a good. Well, obviously, I think you go to a school that you get attention and you get these absolute advantage.
You can stay out as basketball. They're Paige Beckers. I mean, she's going to make a ton of money long before she ever goes to the WNBA.
Yeah, she'll make more money now than she probably will in the WNBA. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, right. So, again, you spent all this time at the U and the practice facilities and everything else. Are you seeing improving levels of equity for women's sports, alongside men when it comes to that? Does the U do a really good job of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're doing a great job of giving everybody the same opportunities and making things fair, because I know it wasn't always that way. And I was able to be a part of the people or the generation or girls that were able to get that fair treatment. But I know that there was a lot of girls before me that didn't get that and had to struggle and grind and, work their way through it, where I had the opportunity to, get treated equally. And I know there's a lot of people that I talked to many people that said, well, when I was your age, we didn't get that, and girls didn't get to play basketball. And I was like, it's crazy. It makes you really respect the things that you do have and the opportunities that you're given, because they weren't always there.
Right. And all the people before you that fought for those opportunities, Title IX and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
That went with that. So talk a little bit about, because this is always, I think, a unique perspective, again, that most of us can't even comprehend. What is it like to go from being, you are the best player on your high school team, you were the best player in the state of Minnesota, you won Miss Basketball your senior year, and then you go to the University of Minnesota, you're with a group of women who were all like that. I mean, everybody was the best player on their basketball team. How big an adjustment is that?
Yeah, it was a big adjustment for me. I mean, I remember walking into practice and everybody, I wasn't used to such physicality, especially from upperclassmen that have already played a couple of years of college basketball. And here's this little freshman walking in, and I'm like, wow, they're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger. And I had some making up to do. So I looked at it as a challenge and an opportunity, instead of being like, oh man, like I'm a freshman, I don't have the same experience, I took it as like, okay, I see what it's like. I'm going to get there. I'm going to make myself better. I want to compete at this level. So I think that's the right mindset. You almost have to go into it, because if you don't, then things get hard really fast.
Right. You talk about strength. I remember you were in college. I had a couple conversations at times about getting strong all the time. And, we all the way beginning, you go about fresh off, kind of coming your own. That was the biggest thing that you had to work on, was getting stronger. You were this scrawny little thing out in the court when you first, got onto the varsity. And that was the big thing, because how do you stop Carlie Wagner? Well, early on it was, you get physical with her and you could do that. But you worked to strength. Some of the things, I remember, just enlighten us a little bit, how much work you have to do at that college level to gain that strength. Weight room, other things that you do that go along with that, diet, I suppose.
Yep. Yeah, we were lifting a lot. So you get there freshman spring, and you're doing summer workouts from May until August every day. And then you get the weekends off, but even on the weekends, you're still trying to do everything possible because you're in summer classes. So you're doing homework on the weekends. But yeah, we had 5 a.m. lifts every day, and then we'd have track workouts, we'd have in-court workouts, we'd have one-on-one workouts. It was just, it's constant, and you just can feel the difference in the intensity. So, you really got to learn to take care of your body and fuel it correctly, because if you don't, you're gonna fall behind really fast. So, but they're amazing at that level. They know what they're doing. They're gonna get you into shape. I remember I put on, like, the first 2 months of summer, I almost had 10 pounds of muscle on me from when I came in as a yeah, and I leaned out really fast. So, you know, it's a great opportunity to get stronger. Just work really hard in the weight room and do what your coaches tell you, and you're going to see results. You just got to take it very serious.
And is there even kind of a personalized, like, well, this is what works for Carlie Wagner, this is what works for Rachel Banham, this, you know, everybody's a little bit different? Yeah,
everybody's stronger in some areas. I remember Rachel Banham could bench press like no other. Like, I look at my barbell and hers, and I'm like, geez. You know, and then I'm lower body dominant, so I could deadlift 300 pounds.
Okay.
I was doing that with my strength coach. So, you know, everybody's different in their areas, and they really know how to accentuate those areas and make you. They want to make you stronger in those areas, but they also want to find your weaknesses and make those stronger too, because that's really important in college, is finding those weaknesses and making them strengths.
Right, because if you don't figure it out, the other coaches will.
Absolutely.
And then, yeah.
It's a game of chess for sure.
Right. You had, like I say, you were drafted by the Lynx, had a little tryout there, did some things. How was your overall WNBA experience, you know, in the brief time that you were there?
It was amazing. It was one of the coolest opportunities I've ever had. Getting to walk into the doors for practice and you're standing next to Sylvia Fowles and Maya Moore was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
That's intimidating, you know. They're superstars. They're literally WNBA champions. They're on the USA team. These are Olympians. These are the people you've looked up to for years, and all of a sudden you're standing next to them and you feel so inadequate. You're like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And,
yeah.
You know, they're just well-oiled machines. Their IQ is through the roof. But the best part about them was they were so open and willing to help and answer questions and take the time to teach you things. And I think that was the coolest thing about training camp, was watching the humility of, like, these superstars and how great of people they are outside of basketball.
Okay. And when we, you know, mentioned the jump from being best player on your high school team to being one of many equals in college, and now you leave college, one of the best players in your team, and now that's got to be an even higher stratosphere to jump. I mean, the ability of these WNBA players, not even close to what it was, the jump from high school to college.
No, yeah, and the physicality is one thing, but the IQ and the mental side of the WNBA is incredible. These are the smartest basketball players that just know the game inside and out. And it's amazing to watch them. They just have this flow to them, and they know exactly what they're doing and where they're going. And, you know, it's incredible.
Wow. So do you ever stop and think, should I have kept at this? Should I have tried to, you know, give it another shot? Or are you at peace saying my basketball career is done?
No, I'm at peace with it, honestly. I feel like the track I'm on now is where I'm supposed to be. But I did, you know, after I quit playing for a little bit there, I was like, man, what if I would have just tried it one more time?
Right.
What if? You know, I went over to Spain and played for a little bit, and that's when I kind of decided I was done. And that was hard for me because, you know, you give your life to it for so long. And I was like, you know, but maybe this is right for me. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. And sure enough, a few years later, I'm in nursing school. So
yeah. Back to school. Yep.
Back to school.
And now you'll be able to help other people all the way through as you finish that. Going back to high school again, and you're a great example of 3-sport athlete: volleyball, basketball, track. You're a high jump champion 2 times over. People often kind of forget about that for some reason, and could have been 3 times, but you had a knee issue your junior year, was it? You missed out on that. How, you know, to the young people listening right now, how important is it to be involved in more than one activity? Because you of all people could have said, nope, the heck with it, I'm just doing basketball, that's my future, but you still were so involved in all your other activities.
Yeah, for me, it was just a good change-up. I think doing one sport year-round for multiple years is just going to burn you out. You're going to get so sick and tired of it. It's the same thing. And I just liked having something to break it up. I loved track. It was my time to, I was playing basketball at the same time, but it was a break for me from basketball. And then I loved volleyball. I was in volleyball in the fall. That was a nice break for me to put the basketball down. When I was in those seasons, when I was in volleyball, I guess, I didn't touch a basketball. I wasn't thinking about it. And then, it makes it that much more fun that season run, go play basketball again. One of the things that you have correlation with track made me a better runner, got me in shape, taught me how to get in shape. Volleyball, jumping, timing for rebounding, all these different things, I think they all correlate into each other. There's something that you can use from each one to help you with your main sport. I think it's super important.
Well, you said you were, lower body strength right there, and that showed, a lot of that is track, volleyball, all the jumping. I mean, your high jump, remind me, 5'10", 5'11"?
5'9".
5'9"? Okay, still. Yep. I mean, that's, holy cow, that's almost jumping over me. That's a little bit of a jump, that strength. And so did you encounter that, I mean, at the U, and you're with these other college athletes, same type of experiences for most of them, where they were involved in multiple activities most of the time?
Yeah. From what I knew, a lot of people were in multiple sports, mostly track and volleyball, actually, just like me, surprisingly. But yes, a lot of people did a lot of different things. People didn't know Rachel Bannum was in track and was a really kick-butt 400 runner in high school.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those things. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, you just see all these different people doing different things, and some of them had opportunities to do more than one sport in college, where they could have went and played volleyball or ran track at a high level. It's really cool. And
that would be really, I mean, it's different seasons, but, like you talked about, even in your off season, you were still working toward basketball. But and Sophie Stork, graduating from New Richland this year, might have an opportunity to play basketball and softball as she goes to Hamlin next year. So
awesome.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out. That's tough too. How closely do you keep tabs with the current University of Minnesota women's basketball team?
I watch them almost every time that they're on TV and that I'm not doing some school stuff.
Okay.
So I love watching them play still. I'm still very involved with the Big Ten. I like watching any Big Ten teams play, but especially the Gopher girls. I love keeping up with them, as well as the Gopher men. Anything Minnesota, I'm always watching. And
it's all Minnesota now, right? Ben Johnson, Lindsay Whalen coaching Minnesota Roots for both of them.
Yeah, it's so cool. You never hear about that either. It's pretty cool that you have all these Minnesota people that are the head coaches. It's a really cool opportunity.
And that's hopefully, I mean, people in Minnesota hope that helps keep some of our great athletes at home, because Minnesota is a basketball hotbed. I mean, we have so much talent in this state. It's unbelievable when you go watch high school basketball games.
Yeah, especially having such a, like Lindsay Whalen. You're a Final Four Gopher player. You're the top player in history. You're a legend in the WNBA, and you come back and coach, and you're from Minnesota. Like, every little Minnesota girl is like, oh my gosh, like, I want to play for Lindsay Whalen,
Yeah, those of us that are old enough to remember watching their Final Four run, it was magical. It was one of those unbelievable things. And yeah, hopefully she brings that magic to the Gophers. She's been here 4 years now. They're struggling this year. But and you watch them, and how close do you think they are to being competitive in the Big Ten?
I think they're very close. Good things take time. And I think she's doing what she needs to, and she's finding those players. She's building what she needs to, make that next Final Four team. But I'm a firm believer good things take time, and you can't just do things overnight. So I know she's working hard to do everything she needs to make it a successful program.
And I've speculated on this show in the past that the idea of, next year, when she'll have had her recruits in here for 4 years, they'll have matured and, really built everybody in there. I think that's when they really start to go. And I think sometimes some of the transfers we've seen are okay, she's establishing her expectations, and people aren't always comfortable with it, and it's time to, this is the way it's going to be at the University of Minnesota. So hopefully, Do you ever get, correspondence from the U, like, hey, Carlie, we'd love you to come back, visit the barn, do stuff like that? Or, anything ever pop up like that?
When I was still in the cities and working up there, I went and practiced with them a few times and would come and help with the scouting report and do things like that. And then I actually decided it was between GAing for Lindsay or it was going overseas. So I took the overseas opportunity, but she definitely gave me that spot on the team. And sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I would have taken it. What a cool opportunity. You get to sit and watch and see things from the brain and the side of one of the best players to ever play.
Right. Do you ever give thought to the idea somewhere down the line? You're pretty intent on this nursing and everything, but someday maybe coach Carlie Wagner at some level or another? I actually would really like that. This summer I already have a couple of things lined up for some camps, and then when I'm established and I have the whole nursing thing figured out, I would definitely love to be a coach someday. I think it would be such a fun, rewarding opportunity to give back to the game that gave me so much and just, teach these girls everything that I know. And that's all you can do is teach them everything you know and let them run with it. And, what they do with it from there is up to them. I had somebody ask me when I told them I was going to interview Carlie for the show. They said, when do you think Carlie Wagner's banner will hang in Williams Arena? So I said I would for sure have to ask you that. You don't think about that?
No.
My joke was, well, it's already up there because I'm sitting at my desk right now looking at the Rachel Bannum full banner I have, and there's Carlie in the background down there. But
my brother actually made that joke. He's like, you live infamously behind Rachel in the bar.
I think of I run across your brothers and you hear about your sister sometimes, and I still get the question from people that ask, are there any more Wagners coming through? Because of course your twins Marnie and Maddie came through and helped lead another team up to the state tournament, finish as consolation champs. Your brothers were tremendous athletes here as well. And I always said, well, no, we have to wait now for Alex and Danny's kids to come through. And then it struck me the other day that Danny and his wife Christina have two young girls, wonderful, awesome. And I thought, well, Christina was a 1,000-point scorer here for the Panthers as well. So who knows? Maybe down the line.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I bet Aunt Carlie would certainly come and work with the kids and better their basketball skills, just like your brothers used to beat you up in the driveway and make you a better player.
They killed me in that driveway. My poor mom, every time especially Danny was the mean one. Alex was the nice one. But Danny I'd go in the house screaming and crying and saying, I quit. And I'd be so mad at him, and it was the best day of my life when I could finally beat him. I was like, this is what I've been waiting for forever.
Oh, goodness. Well, Carlie, it was great to catch up with you. I'm so glad you took some time with us and talk about that, like college experience and beyond and all the great things. And as I said at the beginning, certainly you are somebody that the young people around our area and probably other places in the state still look up to and think about and look at you as a role model as well. So, Carlie, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate the time.
Yes, thanks for having me.
All right, Carlie Wagner. We'll be back after this.
There's enough bad news in the world. Where can you turn for some good news? The NRHEG Star Eagle, of course. Your area newspaper, the Star Eagle, focuses on the events and people that make our area a great place to live. The NRHEG Star Eagle, your good news newspaper. To subscribe or advertise, contact Eli at 507-463-8112 or email steagle at hickorytech.net. The Star Eagle is also currently hiring for all positions. Again, you can contact Eli 507-463-8112 or email steagle@hickorytech.net. And as a bonus, you get to read the original Whatever Flips Your Waffle column every week on page 2. And now it's time for the state of Minnesota sports. We continue to hurtle toward the end of college basketball season. It's almost upon us. March Madness is nearly here, that great time of year. And what we see is a week left for the women's basketball team and a couple of winnable games on their docket to, sort of keep them in that middle range in the Big Ten. Are they going to go anywhere in the Big Ten tournament? Likely not. Maybe win a game, maybe two, make themselves known, try to eke that overall record back toward 500 for the season. The men in the same situation, and we talked a little bit at length last week about that. They have their ups and downs, and Coach Ben Johnson in the last week talked about, continuing to be competitive. That is their goal, and they certainly have been in most games. They have their little flops, but even against highly ranked teams, they go out there and battle from beginning to end. And again, I continue to say it's a sign of good coaching. Not a lot of great talent on there. They've missed guys because of injury and illness and everything else, but they're out there fighting every single game. And so it's exciting to see when Ben Johnson gets his own players in here in another year or two, how good they'll be. And the same goes for Lindsay Whalen. And you heard Carlie Wagner earlier talking about how close she thinks they actually are, and that Lindsay is forming a great culture up there. And before long, we'll hear about the Lady Gophers being very competitive in the Big Ten. Let's hope that's true. This last weekend was the NBA All-Star break, and our own Karl Anthony Towns here of the Minnesota Timberwolves won the three-point contest, knocking down shots left and right. Certainly a fun thing to watch. And the All-Star game itself went down to LeBron James hitting a bucket to put things away, though Steph Curry was the star of the show, 50 points on the night. That's, even in an all-star game, that's pretty unbelievable. But Steph Curry, the one who got away here in Minnesota, a lot of Timberwolves fans look way back to that draft and think, well, what if we had taken Steph Curry instead of the forgettable Johnny Flynn? So the Timberwolves come out of the All-Star break, a couple months left in the season, and again, they're in that 7 spot. In the playoffs, a play-in tournament, the 7 through 10 teams have to play. They'd certainly like to make a little run and catch up and get into that 6th spot, and that's very doable. But again, it's going to count on them continuing to play better defense than they have, and keeping up that offensive effort that they've been putting forth over the last month or so. But exciting times if you're a Timberwolves fan, just because there is that chance to see them in the playoffs again, and even a chance to play in an actual series, not just this play-in tournament, and possibly have a game at the Target Center as well. So we'll continue to see and keep an eye on Chris Finch and his team and how they're going to do. The Wild continue strong. I was reading some information on that, and I hadn't realized this, but they're the 3rd highest scoring team in the NHL. That's certainly impressive. They currently sit in 2nd place in their division, just a little bit ahead of the 3rd place team. But, again, they have a long ways to go as well. They still have a trade deadline coming up, and it'll be interesting to see if they do anything there. I say frequently on here, I don't know a whole lot about hockey. I know the bare minimum, the basics, but I've been talking to some people who do know a little bit more, trying to get more informed, and they say this team has a real chance. They have a real chance when they are playing well. Boy, they are hard to beat. And when you look at some of the scores, and again, the goals, the number of goals they put up, that even if defensively they're not at the top of their game, well, offensively they might be able to win shootouts against other teams and make a real run at trying to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. And what an exciting time it would be here in Minnesota. It rarely happens that the Timberwolves could be in the playoffs and the Wild in the playoffs at the same time when it comes to springtime, to be able to follow both those teams and see what happens. As we talked about earlier, it seems unlikely that Major League Baseball will start on time. So when we get to April, you might not have any Twins to be worried about, and you might be focused on the Timberwolves and the Wild, and I'm sure those two teams would welcome that and be able to have some capacity crowds at potential playoff games there as well. Even when you look ahead, April, again, if there's no baseball in town, we still get to host the Women's NCAA Final Four here at the Target Center in Minneapolis, and what an exciting time that'll be to showcase women's basketball. There's some fantastic teams in the NCAA women's bracket, and we'll really see just how much the NCAA has made toward equalizing that tournament. A big deal was made last year in the pandemic bubbles about the women and like the training facilities they had and the weight rooms and everything. So we'll see what happens here when the Final Four comes to Minneapolis, and also even before that in some of the earlier round games. But a pretty big deal, and I'm sure that Minnesota fans are rooting for Paige Beckers to get healthy from her fractured leg at UConn, and that UConn can make a run and come here back to her home area and play some basketball. That would really up the energy there at Target Center, and certainly UConn would be a favorite among the local crowd to try to win. And the Minnesota Vikings, Kevin O'Connell, officially the coach. He's really been filling out. In fact, they had been filling out the roster of other coaches prior to his official announcement, and all the jitteriness when Sean McVay hinted at maybe he would retire from coaching, and that we might lose O'Connell a little bit like the Indianapolis Colts lost Josh McDaniel some time back after he had agreed in principle to be their new head coach. But O'Connell is safely ensconced up at TCO Performance Center. And, it's interesting. I kind of go back and forth on this. He made it really clear during his press conference that he will be calling the plays. He will be calling the offensive plays even as the head coach. And my first reaction to that was a little bit of leeriness. Wait a second. We just had a head coach who was so focused on calling the defense all the time that he forgot about the other aspects of the game. He wasn't good at time management, when to call timeouts, and pretended to know about the offense when really he was more worried about the defense. Here we got a guy who's an offensive mind, even though he didn't call the plays. And so my leeriness about him calling plays, then I think about, his old boss, Sean McVay. He calls the plays for the Rams. Another McVay's proteges, Matt Flynn over in Green Bay, he calls the plays. I guess it can be done. I mean, I hope it'll be fine. I just always worry, do you have enough trust in your other coordinators in the defensive side of things that they are going to be able to do their job? And are you going to be so worried about the next offensive possession that you're not going to really be focused on what the defense is doing as well, which is what you need to do as the head coach of a National Football League team. You have to be aware of all things at all times and know, well, even special teams wise, is this a good time for a fake punt? Should we onside kick here? Those kind of things, which a lot of times those are pretty cut and dry. And again, you're going to have a special teams coach who's going to be whispering in your ear in those types of situations. But I grow concerned a little bit about the defense, and hopefully the gentleman that O'Connell has brought in, certainly seasoned veterans, guys who know what they're doing, had some good success over time. But will that work out well? And will O'Connell, again, he's bringing in an offensive coordinator from the Rams staff to do basically what he did with the Rams, which, as far as I understand it, was helped with the game plan in advance and added his own thoughts throughout the game, but he really didn't, call the plays. So here you are as a first-time head coach, and you're going to be doing that. So just, I'm a little hesitant. I hope it'll all work out. Clearly, he's got a lot of great attributes. I'm really happy that they hired Kevin O'Connell. I think that he could be the answer that the Vikings are looking for. But boy, I hope if things aren't going right, he's not afraid to hand off some of the responsibilities and say, all right, I have some other things I have to worry about. And so maybe during the week, he is focused on the big picture items, and his new offensive coordinator, Coach Phillips, will be kind of working that game plan. So when it comes to game time, O'Connell knows what's there, but he can also, be able to call those plays with some surety. And we'll see. And maybe this is the start of a Kevin O'Connell coaching tree as well. Who knows? He's bringing over somebody else with him, from the Rams. And, of course, that might evolve from a McVay coaching tree anyway. But is that the idea, that you're bringing all these guys in and giving them the same chances you had? People you trust, you have to trust them. You can't just bring in, hey, we'd all like to have fill in the blank this coach who's had a lot of success. But it has to be people that you've worked with, maybe that you have some comfort level with, because you have to establish trust among the coaches, and that's what the Vikings are going to look to do moving forward. You even look, a little bit elsewhere, and you see that the shuffling of coaches, and a lot of times it's people that are familiar with other people at some point in their career, and so hopefully that'll work a little bit with the Vikings as well. One last item I wanted to touch on when we talk about the state of Minnesota sports. I read a disturbing story last week about an incident in a Duluth high school hockey game. And if you've been paying attention, you know that I certainly like to pay attention to high school sports. I think that they're overall a shining example of great things in Minnesota. But there was a really terrible incident up in Duluth, Minnesota, where toward the end of a game, and it was a blowout. I think it was 6-2 at the time, and a kid who had scored a bunch of goals just got blindsided by a guy from the other team and just kept pounding him into the ice. He had a concussion. I think the kid's going to be all right, but these sort of things that happen, why do they happen? What's going on a little bit when you see stuff like that? Certainly people get very emotional in games, but to see an assault like that, and the kid who got beat up, his dad is a police officer, so you can only imagine his thoughts on that matter. But you look at that, you think, jeepers, the game wasn't even in doubt anymore. There was nothing, who knows? Maybe the kid said something to the other one and he got mad. But even there, I wish we could teach young people and adults, because that can be an issue too, to just restrain those emotions. It's a game. And then you see Juwan Howard go after a Wisconsin coach after they lost. He didn't like that they were calling timeouts at the end. And there's some unwritten rules kind of when it comes to those kind of things. But still, jeepers. And then other people see that and they say, well, okay, I want to do that too. And that's not Howard's first incident as the Michigan head coach for the men's basketball team. But those things are unacceptable. They're just really unacceptable. And my thought process went through this, and I sit at a lot of high school games, and I listen to people yell at officials, and I see kids gesticulate toward the officials, and they don't like a call, and it just irks me the wrong way. And so next week you can expect to have a little bit more on that, especially as we enter really the in-depth high school playoff seasons here in Minnesota for our winter activities. But I certainly hope that we can make a move toward better sportsmanship at all levels of competitive sports. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the state of Minnesota sports. And finally, it's time for This Week in Minnesota Sports History. On February 24th in 2021, Derek Falvey of the Twins announced that top prospect Royce Lewis would undergo knee surgery for a torn ACL. A year later, things sure look good for Lewis when you hear speculation about him being ready to go, and Twins fans should certainly be excited about that whenever we might see baseball again. On February 25th, in 1981, the most penalized game in NHL history occurred between the Minnesota North Stars and the Boston Bruins. 84 penalties, 392 minutes of penalty time. Part of that involved a big brawl that occurred, but that's pretty significant. And on February 25th in 2005, the Twins started their This is Twins territory set of promotions and ads. Perhaps you remember those, and it really grabbed your attention and wanted you to watch a little bit more Twins baseball. On February 28th in 2021, the Twins played in front of paying customers for the first time in almost a year since the pandemic had hit, and they won 7-6 over the Boston Red Sox in a spring training game. On March 4th in 1970, Charlie Burns became the last player/coach in the National Hockey League for the North Stars by playing in the North Stars' win over Toronto 8-0. In 2014, on March 1st, the Twins announced Miguel Sano would undergo Tommy John surgery and be out for the season. At the time, Sano was just sort of entering our mindset a little bit, and now one looks back and wonders how much impact that had on him long term, his ability to play in the infield or not, even his ability to swing the bat on a consistent basis. Who knows? And in 2019, on March 1st, Marnie Gellner made Twins history as the first woman to do play-by-play for the club. It was a spring training game, but still significant. Marnie does a lot of nice things for the Twins and other broadcast partners and everything, and it's nice to hear her voice anytime you turn on the TV. This coming week, for local listeners in the Richland, Heartland, Ellendale, Geneva School District, we have a band concert. That's not sports, but February 24th, 6 through 12 band concert. It's my favorite band concert of the year. You kind of watch the progression and ability from start to finish of our band students. And I've said before how important, and we talked to John Millay a week ago, how important all these other extracurricular activities are in addition to athletics. On February 25th, boys basketball plays their last home game against United South Central, a Gopher Conference battle. And March 1st, boys basketball wraps up their regular season at LeSueur Henderson, and the girls basketball team, the Lady Panthers, will start their playoff run with a home game against an opponent to be determined. One suspects after the Lady Panthers won some big games over the last week, even though they lost to Hayfield in the Gopher Conference Championship game, that the Lady Panthers will have either the number 2 or number 3 seed in the subsection and will have a home playoff game to start things off. Remember, if you can't be in the gym, we invite you to tune in to the NFHS network. I'm there doing play-by-play as the game occurs, and we welcome you to join in and support local high school athletes. Well, that will do it for another helping of waffles here at 365sportscast.com. Just glad you decided to spend an hour with me. Hope you'll continue to tune in each week right here at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central on Wednesdays. And if you can't catch the original broadcast, each week's episode will replay Thursdays at 10 o'clock Eastern, Fridays at 7 o'clock Eastern, Saturdays at 10 o'clock Eastern, Mondays at 8 o'clock Eastern, and Tuesdays at 10 o'clock Eastern, all here at 365sportscast.com. Show is also archived to YouTube, and you can find that link on my site at 365sportscast.com. Remember, I still would enjoy feedback from you and ideas as we continue to chart the course of this ship. Email me at waffleflipper22@gmail.com or message me on Twitter at Mr. D1973. Next week, we'll dive back into the world of Minnesota sports. Will Major League Baseball ever get its act together and put a product on the field? Well, the Vikings have made very clear whether or not Kirk Cousins is their quarterback for this coming year and years beyond. How about those Gophers as they end the Big Ten season for both men and women, as well as our Wild and Timberwolves continuing their playoff push? Come on back and find out. I'll have another special guest to delve into all this and more. Thank you again for joining me. This is Mark Domeyer signing off with Syrup.